This is Thursday, and on Thursday, what we like to do is share some interesting, crazy, scary, funny stories, anything that's happened to us in real estate that we want to share. So I want you guys to start thinking about that. But before we jump into it, who was on the pivot call this morning?
I was
halfway. Okay. So they were talking about just like being the local economists, and they were sharing information. And I got off that call and I wondered, how many of us really know what's happening in our county, in Bergen County? Like if a seller said, how are things going? Are we really tracking our stats every week or every month and know what's actually happening? So what I did is I hopped on the MLS. Let me just share my screen with you guys really quickly. I thought this was pretty interesting, so I wanted you guys to see what I saw. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so in Bergen County, what I did is between last Wednesday to Wednesday, and I just pulled up 92 actives went on the market in the last week. 99 went under contract, and what I thought was really interesting is 37 of those 99 were on the market 30 days or less, so they're selling really quickly. And we had 80 closings just in the last week, April 22nd to April 29th. And so I want to share this because we see activity. Ira had a closing, he had 2 closings. Seth, you had a closing. You know, a lot of us have some activity. I just don't know if we realize how much is happening out there, and there's opportunities for us to get out there and take listings, and they're selling quickly. So I just want to share that with you, and hopefully it'll motivate somebody to get out there and get your unfair share, because there are people listing property right now that we can be helping. I can't talk today. That we can be helping. So I will share this on the Morning Mindset WhatsApp page. It's just a good stat I thought was pretty interesting. What do you guys think about those numbers?
Yeah, I have actually on my hot sheets, I have several different towns and everything active, under contract, sold, withdrawn, expired, and you know, it's whatchamacallit, and I keep getting alerts all throughout the day.
Okay.
You know, of all this stuff happening. So
that's awesome. This is what we should be sharing with people when we're calling. We're talking to our sphere of influence. If we happen to talk to an expired or a for sale by owner, if we could say to them, are you aware that 92 properties just went on the market in the last week, and over the last week 99 properties went under contract? It's that whole logic makes them think, emotion makes them act. If we can give them the numbers so they can make a decision logically, and then we understand their motivation, we can get them to make a decision if their motivation is strong enough. So we just need to have those numbers to be part of the conversation. All right, so I'm going to stop my share, and then I want to hear some stories, and I'll start you guys off. I think it's a bit of a growth story. When I was living in Houston, I did a lot of HUD foreclosures. That's how I really got into real estate. I would help people buy a HUD foreclosure. They would turn around and flip those properties and sell them and make a profit. And I used to do that. And then I started keeping those properties as rentals. Well, I was in a town in a city of Conroe, and the subdivision was called cut, like cutting and shooting. It's called Cut and Shoot. And so I don't know where that name came from. There's got to be a lot of history there, but that's a crazy name. And I was going to a property that was foreclosed on, and they had the exterminator coming in. They had cleaned out the property, and they had an exterminator there at the property spraying. I pull up on the street, and literally from the garage, you just saw a stream of roaches running up this house. It was like a river of roaches running down the driveway all the way down the street. I could not go in that house. It was the craziest scene I had ever seen in my life. And a week later, when we went back in the house, I don't know if you guys have ever been around roaches. They have a smell, it's a really horrible smell. That house, they had to rip out all the drywall and redo everything because it was just infested. It was the craziest thing I ever saw. Crazy.
I don't think I've ever gotten that close to a roach to smell it. But growing up in Brazil, we have flying roaches. So we're always battling those suckers. They would fly right to our face.
Look, it's enough. It's just enough to see them crawling. Flying, I don't want to deal with that, Hazel. That's too much.
So when I first became an agent, I was desperate to get any listing. So I was doing desk time, and a guy walks in and goes, "Yeah, I have a multifamily. It's three family." So I was like, "Yeah, I want it." So I went to see it. It was pretty gross, but he overpriced it, and I was like, yeah, I just want to list it. So he listed at 650. He got an offer for 625. He said no way. 635. He said no way. We did a lot now, but I didn't like going in the house. It's so disgusting. And I was like, let me just Google this one day. So I Googled his address, and the first hit on Google says house shut down for rat and roach infestation due to food trucks. So they were running a food truck,
Wow.
and they were cooking in the house. And the inspector shut the house down a year and a half before. Like, they shut the business down. And I'm like, oh my God. Long story short, we finally got an offer on it, but then his attorney likes to include him on all emails. So when the seller's attorney wrote back, yeah, they want, this much credit for for like a concession, and we know it's sold as is, but this is the price. And then he writes back, bypasses his attorney and goes, no, I don't accept anything. And I was like, why is he including him on the emails?
Wow.
So the deal died and I lost the listing.
Craziness.
Yeah, it's disgusting home.
All right, come on, give me some more stories. I'm sure you guys have some more.
I worked with
oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
Seth.
go ahead.
Go ahead. You first.
Okay, I worked with a tenant going back about 6-7 years ago, and it was a $5,000 rental in Franklin Lakes area, and he wanted a large house. And so I'm going through these homes with him. I'm showing him a couple homes, and I'm asking him questions, and he changed his story from one showing to another as to what he did and what he was doing. So I looked the guy up, and it turns out that he was in jail for major financial fraud.
Wow.
And I dropped him, and he said, why are you dropping me? I said, well, I accidentally came across your name online. And he goes, yeah, you got me.
Wow.
That was no accident. I just
we got to do our research, don't we? Wow.
Yeah, and I just thought I'd share since it's so current right now, I just thought I'd share the story about this. It's very quick about the attorney that my sellers on my listing, when they got this, they had an attorney, they wouldn't take my recommendation, and the day that they're moving out, when we expect the closing's going to happen, so this is 2 days ago, my seller says to me, so what do you think of my attorney? And I said, is your attorney related to you? And she said, no. I said, okay, well, I don't like your attorney. I think your attorney's been an obstructionist. Your attorney has made this deal so challenging. And she started to cry. And she said, I know, I hate him myself. And then I asked how she got him, and it was a referral. And then, I mean, this is 2 months after the whole thing has been happening. I looked him up on the internet. He's an immigration law attorney.
Goodness gracious. Definitely shouldn't be doing real estate, right? They don't have the writers. They don't have anything they need in order to really help us and make it a smooth transaction. That's crazy. All right, so I got Ron on this call. I got Tony on this call. I got Jason and Michelle, Erin. Tell me some crazy stories. I know you guys have them.
All right, I'll go for another one if nobody, and it's actually an attorney. It's another attorney
Let's do
story. About 4 or 5 years ago, I had a client that chose an attorney through literally his cousin.
Cousin Vinny.
And the attorney was in Clark, New Jersey. Now, she worked out of her home, and each time I called her and spoke with her, she had her baby in one arm and a screaming toddler right beneath her. And throughout the transaction, they were all very silent. And at one point, I was talking to my buyer, went from a conventional loan to an FHA loan. And I said, dude, you guys cannot do that with this house because it came back on the market specifically because it underappraised, the FHA appraiser underappraised it. And they said, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. Well, I called the attorney, and she gave me she gave me a story, and then I talked to my buyer, gave me the exact same story, that everything was fine. They're talking with the other attorneys. Everything is good. Okay, fine. Well, that Monday I get CC'd on a very nasty letter from the other attorney, giving a laundry list of items that should have been done, including the deposit that wasn't put in, and the fact that these other attorneys were actually on vacation the week before. So I ended up calling my buyer, yelling at him. I called the attorney, yelled at her. I then called my client back, yelled at him. He was crying. He broke down and gave me some other confessions, including the mortgage guy. So I called the mortgage guy, find out what was going on, yelled at him for what he was doing, called back and called everybody back and said, this is what you need to do. If you don't do it, if you don't do it, you're going to be, you're going to be in real trouble. So then I called the agent back, who was a first-year agent in the business. And I said to her, okay, I got everybody in control. This is what's going to happen. A, B, C, D, and E. So she starts moaning and like, oh, and I said, shut up. I yelled at her. This all happened in a 40-minute time period, by the way.
Wow. That's
I
crazy.
have a funny story to tell you guys.
Crazy.
So I was like a brand new agent, and I was at my first home inspection, and the inspector he went to pull down the attic, those pull down attic, and he said that were clear signs of animals in the attic, and it looked like they had chewed up all the air conditioner vents and stuff like that, and because of that, he did not want to go up in the attic. So he recommended that we get an exterminator in there to fix the problem. But my client decided not to get an exterminator. She decided to call an air conditioner person to go assess how much damage was done so we can put that in the report. So I was able to get somebody in there, and the guys, it's like a very narrow hallway, and my client and I were standing there, and the air conditioner guy went to go pull down the vent, and when he pulled it down, a squirrel just came. A squirrel like fell down, I guess he must have been sitting right on the pull down, Everyone, including the air conditioning guy, everyone just took off running, screaming. Anyways, loose squirrel in the house. I close up. We had to leave, call the seller, and we're like, there's a squirrel somewhere inside your house. Just letting you know. Recommended an exterminator, and the exterminator, it was actually a good friend of mine, and I called him up and I was like, hey, what'd you do with that squirrel? He's like, do you really want to know? And I'm like, no, I don't. Anyways, she didn't buy the house. The damage, there was just so much damage in that attic, and the seller was not willing to put a dime into that, so it was a dead deal.
That is hilarious.
Everybody just took off running, like.
I could vision that as you were saying it. I could see it in my head, and that's hilarious. Wow.
I'm terrified of those attics. I have one, and I'm always like,
I know. You never know what you might get. So I'm stopping the live stream right now, and I need